Okay, still showing.
They have the conference at the same room.
No, we do not. It's busy.
All right, so we'll just go to the conference.
Yeah.
Okay, we should be.
Yeah, we should be good.
Hello, everyone. Thank y'all for coming. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Hello, everyone. We'll get started here in a second.
Hello.
Hi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How's everybody?
Good. Hello,
Heather, I
everyone.
just wanna check my mic quick. You can hear me
Yes.
okay? Okay, perfect.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Heather. We'll go ahead and get started with today's presentation. Today is our March West presentation, and it is all about the microbiome. Like I said, my name is Heather. I am an alumni from Texas State. I graduated with my bachelor's 2 years ago. I am currently finishing up my master's and in nutrition, human nutrition, as well as I am the graduate assistant for the nutrition services for wildcats.
And hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Horner. I graduated back in 2022, I believe that sounds right, with my bachelor's in nutrition. I'm currently a master's student in human nutrition, and then I'm the dietetic intern working with Wildcats Nutrition Services.
Okay, so just kind of jumping right in. I know we're all here to kind of learn about the microbiome. I know we hear it a lot, especially in the last decade or so. The research field in the microbiome has really developed. But I know there's a lot of chitter chatter as to, what is it? We've heard gut dysbiosis, we've heard leaky gut. We know that, our food helps our gut, but really, what is it? And especially when we have certain chronic diseases, our microbiome really plays a part into that. So we'll kind of dive into all of that today. So I'll just start with the beginning background information about the microbiome, and then Sarah would do the leading of nutrition and the microbiome and disease states. So just starting with the microbiome, the definition of it. So the microbiome encompasses the entire habitat. So that's including the gastrointestinal tract, as well as the microbiota that lives within there and their genes. We won't tap into their genes, but just like us humans, we have genes in our DNA, so does the microbiota. The microbiota is microorganisms that are found within the GI tract. So within the stomach, the small intestine, large intestine, also known as the colon, and the cecum. The cecum is the structure that connects our small intestine to our large intestine, and that's where most of the bacteria lives, and that's where all of the fermentation occurs right before it goes into the colon. There's hardly any bacteria found within the small intestine. That's normally where most of the absorption of nutrients happen, the nutrients that are not absorbed, which feeds the bacteria, that's where it fermentates in the colon to then, it's kind of like our body's like, okay, yeah, we don't want this. We'll go ahead and give it to our bacteria, and then they'll make use of our nutrients. So they can do different things with our nutrients after we eat. A lot of times, a lot of the fermentation happens from the carbohydrates that we intake. And so the bacteria will utilize that as their food, since we didn't utilize it as our food. And then they will produce short chain fatty acids. The most popular one, which I'm pretty sure, some of y'all may heard of, butyrates. Comment in the chat if you have, and maybe comment what you've heard about it. But butyrate is a very beneficial short chain fatty acid that provides a lot of benefits to our GI tract. Primarily, it helps protect the integrity of it. So it prevents pathogens from entering and prevents anything from leaking out, which that has to do with leaky gut, which I mentioned. I know people have heard of that. So that's just when stuff within our GI tract leaks out into our blood, and that's where contamination pathogens can, disturb. But anyways, so I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so back to the cecum. Yeah, so that's where a lot of the fermentation happens within our gut. So at the bottom, I have a few terms that I know have been thrown around that I just want to clarify. So the microbiome is also known as the gut. And then the microbiota, a lot of people use gut flora or intestinal flora or intestinal microflora. All that is the same thing. So just kind of dive a little bit more into what is the microbiota. So the microbiota is composed primarily of commensal bacteria. There are other fungi and viruses and that live within our GI tract. But like I said, is predominantly bacteria, and we have a symbiotic relationship with them. So like I said, when we eat, what we don't consume or don't get absorbed in our small intestine, we feed that to them, and then in return, they provide us with health benefits. So that's what that symbiotic relationship is. Primarily, most of the bacteria in our gut is firmicutes. It's about 60 to 80%, and the remainder is bacteroids. I'll dive into that here in a second. But they normally, when a host is healthy, so not having any disease states or conditions or disorders, the bacteria will contribute to the energy as well as a nutrient balance. So butyrate can provide us with, or not butyrate, excuse me, the bacteria can provide us, can produce vitamin K within our guts, as well as, there's another nutrient that I can't remember off the top of my head. Sarah, if you can help me out and put that in the chat if you know off the top of your head. But it's two essential nutrients that we need that our gut can produce by fermentating it with our foods. And they also will help us fight off opportunistic pathogens and then also play a role in our immune function. So our gut plays a huge role in immune function, as well as our immune plays into our gut function. And I'll tap into the opportunistic pathogen here in the next slide. But whenever we see a decrease in our commensal bacteria and it's out of balance, normally this is found when we are presenting with a disease state, so diabetes or heart disease, IBD, that's when gut dysbiosis arises. So that's just the imbalance of the commensal bacteria if we don't have enough of our good bacteria. So the bad bacteria, which we know or that we hear about, is our opportunistic pathogens. And so these form when our good bacteria turns bad. And so what can trigger that is different, like I said, disease states, or if we encounter, obviously, external pathogens, if we get sick, or foodborne illnesses that can trigger our pathogens to become opportunistic pathogens. And they will they have a pathology effect, so they can, if we have an increase of them, then that's when they can make certain, what's the word? Chronic diseases within us, excuse me. So, we are the nutrition side. We will dive into the nutrition aspect of the microbiota, but just kind of touch on a few other things in addition to the nutrition aspect. I kind of want to touch on skin health because the microbiota does play into skin health. So we do have bacteria on our skin, and like I said, whenever certain things can trigger them to become bad, and that's what can exacerbate already existing diseases. Such as psoriasis or atopic dermatitis, acne, rosacea, all these can be triggered by having an imbalance of good bacteria within our guts. So Sarah will dive in later as to what we can do to make sure we're having a good balance of microbiota to avoid these things. And then also, before Sarah takes over, I kind of want to just touch on the microbiota and aging. So I know there's a lot going on in this visual, but I kind of just wanted to mainly focus on, remember how earlier I said we have firmicutes predominantly and then bacteroids. So when we are first born, we see majority of just the firmicutes, but as we age, our diversity increases. So you can see right here in our stable phase, from childhood all the way to adulthood, we see predominantly, oh, sorry. We see predominantly we have our firmicutes, but then those start to decrease as we start to experience negative external factors. So, if we are intaking a lot of antibiotics, that's going to cause imbalance within our bacteria, also vaccines, food, hygiene, environmental factors, stress, diseases, all these things play into our diversity becoming out of balance to where we will no longer have that much firmicutes and have more bacteroids. And though when these are increased, we do see a lot of adverse effects. And so this is where retrogression will occur. A lot of this takes place when we have lower fiber intake, because remember I mentioned our bacteria will fermentate those carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are fiber. So whenever we don't have enough of that coming in, our bacteria can't use that for their food supply. And so we will have imbalances. Also, long stay care can induce this, as well as, like I said, antibiotics and other medications can induce this imbalance. And I will go ahead and let Sarah take over from here.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how the microbiome can contribute to different types of chronic diseases. The research surrounding this area of nutrition is super interesting right now, and there's growing evidence showing that this imbalance that we see in the gut microbiota is contributing to the diseases that you see here on the screen. So things like asthma or NAFLD, which is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, CKD, which is chronic kidney disease. We're seeing a connection with autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, with mental health, inflammatory bowel disease, so like Crohn's, also diabetes, cardiovascular disease or heart disease, and then IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. We don't have time to cover all of these in depth today, but we are going to dive a little deeper into IBS, heart disease, and diabetes. Next slide, Heather. Thank you. So we'll start with IBS, and IBS is a very common gastrointestinal condition. And in fact, it's one of the most common GI disorders seen in clinical practice today. It's estimated that about 10 to 15% of the population has been diagnosed with IBS, and it presents with abdominal pain, bloating, gas, and altered bowel function. So this could be diarrhea, constipation, or a combination of both of those. And in research, they're seeing that the imbalance of the gut microbiota leads to inflammation, and that inflammation then triggers those IBS symptoms. So specifically, research is finding that people with IBS have significantly less bifidobacterium, and that is a very important beneficial bacteria that's found in the gut. So these people with IBS have less of that good bacteria. So taking the probiotic bifidobacterium has been seen to be very helpful to relieve symptoms. So very interesting there. Next slide, Heather. Okay, so for cardiovascular disease or heart disease, researchers are finding decreased amounts of beneficial bacteria that produce the short chain fatty acids that Heather was talking about earlier. So these short chain fatty acids are super interesting and they contribute to health in so many ways. But in terms of heart health, they help regulate hormones. So more specifically with heart health, they're going to promote the release of renin from the kidneys, which helps regulate blood pressure. Those short chain fatty acids also help reduce harmful inflammation that contribute to heart disease. So research is showing that probiotics that have lactobacillus strains are particularly helpful with heart disease because lactobacillus strains produce those short chain fatty acids that do all those wonderful things to support heart health. And next slide. Okay, and so for diabetes, kind of similar to heart disease, the short chain fatty acids are really involved in this process too. So in the case of cardiovascular disease, we are looking at the hormone renin, but with diabetes, we're looking at the hormone insulin and the role that it plays in regulating blood sugar. So in people with diabetes, we're seeing that they have less bacteria strains that can not only produce short chain fatty acids, but specifically butyrate, that short chain fatty acids that Heather mentioned earlier. So research is finding that a probiotic that has strains that can produce specifically butyrate can be very helpful in managing diabetes. So the key takeaway is that we are still learning. This is a really fascinating area of research right now, and it's showing a lot of promise. But with that being said, the research is still expanding, and there's a lot that we still don't know yet. So there's no blanket recommendations to give to people just yet. Okay, so now we're gonna switch gears a little bit and talk about how nutrition can be used to support our gut. And we're gonna focus on probiotics and prebiotics today. All right, so first, what are probiotics? And probiotics are a term I'm sure everybody has heard. It's a very hot topic these days. Probiotics are live bacteria, that's the key there, live bacteria that bestow health benefits when consumed in an appropriate amount, so you can't overdo this, but also a sufficient amount. The key thing here is that they're live, like I mentioned. So whether or not you consume a probiotic that is food-based or supplement form, it has to be alive to have those health benefits. Next slide. Okay, so probiotic foods. Many fermented foods contain probiotics. So foods like sauerkraut or kimchi or any other kinds of fermented veggies, fermented soy products like miso or tempeh, and then fermented dairy products like kefir and yogurt. It's really important to note, though, that not all fermented foods contain live probiotics. And remember, that's the key. They need to be alive. So because of processing techniques that are done to kill harmful bacteria that can make us sick, we also sometimes kill off that good bacteria that can be helpful. And so this gets done in things like pasteurization. And then this is also similar to what would happen in cooking. So if you take a product that has a live probiotic in it, like let's say we're going to cook the tempeh, and you're using high heat or you're using heat for an extended period of time, you might kill some or even all of the probiotics that are in that product. Another example would be pickling. So products that are pickled using a more traditional vinegar method usually will not contain live probiotics. But if a product uses a pickling method that has brine, so sugar and salt, that product could have live probiotics. And it's important to note that sometimes a product will go through those processes that actually kill off that good bacteria. However, then the probiotic might be added back in at the end of the process. So that's also another way to kind of get around, if you're going to use pasteurization, for example, killing that harmful bacteria in like a yogurt. And then after that processing is done, we're putting back in those probiotics. So next slide. Okay, so is this the next slide?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I wonder if I added a slide last night that didn't get downloaded into it, but that's fine. I'll just talk
Wait, I'm
about.
sorry. No, I apologize.
Okay, I was like, it's like, I
Sorry.
swear I made this slide. Okay. So, how do you know if your food contains live probiotics? Because all those things I just said, that's, that's kind of a lot. So like when you're going to the grocery store to buy something, how do you know? So there's a few ways that you can check. So first, a good way would be to think about whether or not the product is in the refrigerated section or if it's in the aisle. So food that has probiotics in it is generally going to be in the refrigerated section. That is not always the case, but it is most of the time. Another way to check is the food label. So as you can see on this yogurt label, in that ingredients list, they have a list of the actual strains that are included in that product. And you'll see this with a majority of probiotic foods. And then another way, if you can't find it in either of those ways, you're not feeling super confident, you can always reach out to the company directly and they can provide that information for you. Okay, so now that we know which foods have those probiotics, let's talk about how we can get more of these foods into our diet. And these are some of my favorite ways. So, and if you've tried any of these, please feel free to comment in the chat, or you can also unmute and chime in if you'd like. But using yogurt or kefir in smoothies and sauces, yogurt is really easy to use in sauces. We actually did this in a Wellcats cooking class recently, and we made this delicious little cilantro lime yogurt sauce that went on fish tacos. So really easy and very yummy. It makes a thick sauce. If you want a thinner sauce, you can use kefir. You can also use yogurt as a substitute for sour cream as well. If like a sauce or something calls for sour cream, you can use yogurt instead. If you like chia pudding, which I do, I usually use coconut milk, but you can use kefir instead to get some more probiotics in. Or you could do a half and half with coconut milk and kefir. You can make a dressing with miso. You can add a scoop of fermented veggies or kimchi to any meal. We were talking the other day, a really good way to do this is in your eggs. It's a really good combination. And like we talked earlier, heat can destroy that. So just if you're going to make it with scrambled eggs, you can scramble your eggs up. And then at the end of that process, kind of fold in the kimchi at the end so that it's not on the heat for too long. And then lastly here, if you're feeling inspired and you want to make your own fermented foods, you can use a brine with sugar and salt instead of using that more traditional vinegar method. So has anybody tried kefir, or are there any other probiotic foods that anybody wants to share that maybe I overlooked or missed? Ooh, water kefir. Okay. Interesting. Kimchi and scrambled eggs. Yeah. All right. Oh, did I miss some more? Oh yes, kombucha. Yep, kombucha has, if you go to the label, most kombuchas will have probiotics labeled on it. Yep. Ooh, that sounds good. Kimchi and avocado toasty. Sounds really good. Yeah, those are great ideas. Thank you everybody for sharing. Kefir is great in smoothies. Yep. I'm glad that somebody's tried that. It's really tasty. Okay. Let me close out my chat here. Okay, so prebiotics. I think we skipped a slide again.
So sorry.
That's okay. We'll get there. Okay,
I was making sure you're paying attention.
I'm on the ball. Thanks for keeping me in check. Okay, so let me regroup here. Okay, so fiber and prebiotics. So first, we're just going to talk about what these terms mean, because I'm sure everybody's heard these terms as well. So what is fiber? So fiber is a special type of carbohydrate, and it's non-digestible. So it moves through your digestion process, but it's not digested, and it's found in plant foods. And then what are prebiotics? Prebiotics are a special type of fiber that's found in plant foods that act as food for the good bacteria in the gut and the probiotics. So these prebiotics are basically fermentable fibers. So it's important to note here too that prebiotics are not only acting as food for, like, if you're doing probiotics and prebiotics, it's also acting as food for that bacteria that already naturally exists in your intestines. So prebiotics all around are just super, super important. They're pretty easy to get if you eat a variety of plant foods. That prebiotic is going to feed the probiotic so that it can produce short-chain fatty acids, enzymes, vitamins, and neurotransmitters. All right. So prebiotic-rich foods, again, found in plant foods, and it's found in a variety, but these are some of the foods that are richest in prebiotics. So leafy greens, corn, beans, bananas, avocados, onions and garlic, nuts and seeds, asparagus and artichokes, oatmeal and other whole grains, and then different types of berries. All right, so how can we get more of these foods in our diet? And the simplest way is to eat more plants. So some ways that we can do this to make sure that we're getting some more prebiotic foods is to do some whole grain swaps. So for example, you could do corn or whole wheat tortillas instead of white tortillas, or whole wheat or whole grain bread instead of white bread. You could do whole grain, veggie, or like a legume-based pasta, so like chickpea or lentil, or rice pasta, instead of doing, just your traditional pasta. You could use brown rice or quinoa instead of white rice. I like doing the half and half method because I actually really like white rice. So if I'm having, let's say I'm having a half a cup of rice, I'll do a quarter cup of white rice and a quarter cup of quinoa, or a quarter cup of brown rice, just to get a little bit more whole grain in. If you're baking, you can also use an oat flour or a nut flour, or any kind of whole grain flour, to kind of mix up your baked goods and get a little bit more prebiotics. With that being said, again, that heat process might kill off. Oh, I'm sorry, that's for probiotics. I'm sorry, let me change gears. But for prebiotics, it's really good to use those in your baked goods. So moving through here, also adding leafy greens to soups and pastas and stir fries and casseroles. I think spinach is the easiest one to do with this. Spinach, you can add a whole bunch. It kind of shrinks down, doesn't have a lot of flavor. So if you're not a big veggie person, it's not going to have too much flavor for you. It's kind of, you can hide it really easily. So I really like using spinach. You can add beans to soups and salads. You can add nuts or seeds to salads, and that gives some extra texture as well. Those nuts and seeds are also going to have really good healthy fat in it as well. You can maybe 1 or 2 days a week, or a meal or two a week, you can use a plant-based protein instead of a meat protein to get a little extra prebiotics. And then starting your day with oatmeal is also a really good way to get some prebiotic foods in. And does anybody have any whole grain swaps that they really enjoy? Or what are your favorite ways to eat prebiotic foods? Check the chat here. Ooh, we have a recipe in the chat. Ooh, that looks really good. King one, right, yeah. Okay. Yeah, those are all great. Yeah, that's great. People are doing good with their prebiotic foods. That makes me happy. This one. Okay, let me close out my chat again. Okay. All right, we can go to the next slide, Heather.
Sorry. I was researching one of the questions in the chat.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sorry. I'm just keeping you in line too.
Yes.
Okay, so as mentioned earlier, the prebiotics feed the probiotics, or the naturally occurring good bacteria that we already have. So they're doing this and they're making those short chain fatty acids, enzymes, vitamins, and neurotransmitters. And these products contribute to health in so many ways. So one way is by regulating hormones, like we talked about earlier with the heart disease and the diabetes. So helping regulate the renin for blood pressure, and then the insulin for controlling blood sugar. So really important there. Other ways is it produces vitamin K, B12, folate, and thiamine, helps strengthen the immune system, and reduces those harmful microbes. It helps decrease harmful inflammation, like we had talked about with heart disease. It helps contribute to cognitive and mental health. It promotes healthy bowel movements, improves overall digestion and absorption, and then it also assists in metabolism. So one of those products is enzymes, for example. So those enzymes are going to help with metabolism and breaking down food too. Go to the next slide. All right, and there's always lots of questions about supplements. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, just with where we are in the research right now, there is no one blanket recommendation on what to choose, or or that everybody needs a supplement. But there are cases where sometimes you do need one. So maybe you're somebody who was just on an antibiotic and you're really noticing some changes in your digestion, and so you want to choose a probiotic. Or you are somebody with IBS and you want to choose a probiotic. These are some good steps that can walk you through choosing a supplement. So first, you want to choose a product that's specific to your needs. So if you have IBS and you want to help treat that, there are a lot of products out there that are devoted to helping IBS. They might even have that probiotic strains that we talked about earlier, the bifidobacterium in it. The second thing is to look for third-party testing. So USP and NSF are two that I included in this. There are others. I would argue these are probably two of the most common ones that you'll see. There's an example over here with a Nature's Made product where it has a USP label. It's usually right there on the front of the bottle. Sometimes it is on the back though, underneath like the ingredients and the nutrition supplement facts. Kind of along with that third-party testing, you're gonna want to select a product that's backed by science. I kind of see these going hand in hand because a lot of times the USP and NSF are looking for that science-backed product as well. But some of these products might have some research of why they've chosen specific strains. They might have research that actually backs up their specific product. So looking into that can be helpful. And then, of course, asking a dietitian or another healthcare provider for tailored advice is always a good option if you feel like you need some guidance. All right. Any questions? Just looking through the chat here.
I know that was kind of a lot of information, so I know
Mhm.
everyone's probably gonna, sit with it for a little bit. But if there's no question that come to mind now, please feel free to reach out to us on Teams. Sarah and I are both in there. Or if you want to send us an email, we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Okay, well, if there's no questions, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everyone has a great weekend and feed their microbiota this weekend.
Thank you, everybody,
All
for
right,
joining
thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Hold on, Sarah. Okay, so it's just us. How you feel? Good? You're muted.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, everything went
Um,
good.
Yeah, I enjoyed, this is a topic I really enjoyed talking about. So, yeah, it was fun. Um, I was surprised we're done this early. When I was timing myself last night, I was right at 25 minutes.
Oh.
And I
I
figured
mean,
it would,
I only took 10, so
oh, okay. I guess
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I guess I didn't pay attention to when I started, but I just
Yeah,
figured
no,
if
you're
it
good.
took 25 minutes when I practiced, it would take probably longer when we were
See,
actually doing it. But
I always find like the more I practice, the actual shorter my presentation gets because
because you cut out all the nonsense.
which clearly I didn't do because at one point I feel like I repeated myself 3 times and I was like, girl, what are you talking about? This is why you should make yourself a script. Like, I mean, not that when I make scripts, I don't like follow it to a T, but it helps me like trim those because it's like
Yeah,
I've already know what I'm going to be talking about. I just need to remember what I'm going to say, whereas
yeah,
today I didn't. Like this morning, I mean, I made my presentation yesterday. Then this morning, I kind of ran through once, and I was like, "Yeah, it seems good." And then I just presented. So then I was like, "Oh God," kind of felt like I was rambling. But I'm happy I did talk about because honestly, I kind of went off on a tangent when I was talking about like the fermentation in the cecum and like talking
Mhm.
about butyrate and all that. I didn't plan to talk about that. That was just off the top of my head because I've been learning about that
Yeah,
in my class. And so I'm happy I did because then it kind of backed up to what you were saying. And then we had questions about it. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm kind of happy I did go off track a little bit.
yeah.
She threw me off when she asked that question. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I just realized this is still recording.
I was actually just going to point that out to you. Which question was it that threw you off? I think I maybe just didn't see that one.
Oh, I already answered it. No, she was like, what foods are, what probiotics are produce butyrate.
Oh, okay.
So then I went on PubMed and like looked it up or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, and I
But
think they're still kind of discovering that too.
yeah.
Yeah, like that's actually why I wasn't super specific. Because even the paper is not specific, which I found very interesting. Like the paper I got that information from, about like which one with diabetes, and taking a butyrate producing probiotic basically. But I thought it was interesting that they didn't specify what that was.
Oh,
They
okay.
they were very generic with it, and yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay. Okay, I'll stop recording.